we're finally here. It's finally time for me to say, if you go down below in the description, you can find a link to download the game, at least the first test build of the game. We're in a phase where I am comfortable giving this mess of a game. It's functional, right? Everything functions. It's just there isn't a lot, and a lot of the assets are very much still temporary, but it's playable. Which is, that's taken 3 fucking months, which is insane. 3 months of like an hour or 2 of work a day, sometimes like 4 or 5 hours in a day, but still. We can't really talk about that too much right now, because I only published the link in the Discord and to some people privately last night, so nobody's been able to play through it and give feedback yet, so I can't go over that process yet. Hopefully over the next couple of weeks I'll be able to dive a little bit deeper into that, as well as this video maybe giving people a little bit of attention, like, oh, I can go play the game. The test build of the game. Very important to keep in mind. This is by no means the finished game. And maybe I'll get some test players that way. I'm also going to make a video dedicated specifically to that later this week. I'm hoping that I have time to make it tonight and upload it tomorrow. It's going to be a short, like, promotional video that I could, if I wanted to, which I don't want to for this version necessarily, but also could run as like a 30-second ad. And also can run as a short, because that's likely to get more views as well. I'm not going to run it as an ad for right now, but going forward, making a video template that I can just like swap 1 or 2 lines out of and run as an ad when I have like 50% of the game done and I need more test players to just have a wider pool of interested people. Also just to keep people interested in the game and have people like wishlisted on Steam and that kind of stuff when I get to that. It's going to be important to have a good video format for that. So I'm going to try to make that today or tomorrow. That all being said, let's talk about the actual work that I've done this week, which hasn't been a lot. Honestly, I've been busy, but I've also been taking it a little bit easy here because I wanted to make sure that everything that I added in worked, and there's been a lot of little like bug fixes and just stupidity fixes, honestly. Just changing things slightly in either level design, programming, whatever. So there hasn't been a lot of progress in what I've made. I've made a couple of things for graphics. I've made the temples that you can see that are used for level selection in the overworld. I'm rather happy with those. Obviously, the portal that is used right now is very much a temporary one, because I just didn't feel comfortable enough in the particle system yet to make my own from scratch. I need to learn a lot more for that. So I'm going to, once I understand it a little bit more, look at this portal, see how it was actually made up. But for the time being, that placeholder is just there. I have a very good idea about what the actual final portal should look like. Have you ever played Rayman 2? Probably have, because you like 3D platformers, I assume, if you're watching this. Kind of like that swirly type feeling is what I want for my portal, but in the shape of like the oval shapes from Portal 2. And I want it all to be particle based rather than just one animated like sprite. So that's gonna take quite a bit of practice to get my skill to the point where I can make that, but it's a fun little project. Not something that I really wanted to dive into necessarily for this test build. It's not that important. So that is very much a temporary asset. The fires on the beacons, also just from an asset pack, very much temporary, but it gets the job done for right now. So I made that. And then I decided, I had a little bit of time left, right? So I decided I want this to be a little bit of a magical forest type feeling. So I added these hanging little firefly magical particles, which really helps to sell, number one, the liveliness, because there's one thing that's very important here, and that's there's not a lot of moving components, especially in the overworld. And that makes the game feel relatively static very, very quickly. Just adding these hanging particles that just very gently move about a little bit, fade in, fade out, and just those kind of things helps to make your screen more dynamic without actually making it super busy and having to like put a lot of actual objects in. It helps making the hub world feel more lively, and I really think it makes a big difference. So I was very, very happy that I actually went into that and tried to play around with that a little bit, and it actually ended up working. I did this last week too, I believe, but the issue I had there is that I tried to make it one very big particle system, but the issue is when you're not looking at where like the center of the particle system is, where the actual emitter is located in the world, it doesn't show the particles. So when you walk away from it, you don't see it anymore, and that to a certain extent still is a problem. The way I fix it is just make it a lot less particles per system and make the systems a lot smaller. So now it's like 10 smaller systems that just follow the path. Just put one down there, then put one down there, and have them overlap just a little bit. And sure, there are some points where if you're really walking slowly and you're really paying attention, you can see some of the particles just randomly disappear. They just pop out of existence because you're no longer within the culling distance for that, right? You don't see it anymore on screen, the emitter, so all the particles disappear. It's only happened to me twice through all my test playing so far, and I've been paying attention to it, so I don't think it's that big of a deal, really. Maybe it's something to look into in the future, but for right now, it seems relatively fine. Onto the more technical level, what I did this week is I made the portals work. So now we have a hub world that has 2 portals in it. Those portals lead to actual levels, and at the end of those levels, the end level blueprint has a similar portal, which then leads you back to the hub world. So at this point, it's a connected loop. You can start a game up, you can go into a level, you can go back into the overworld, go into the other level, go back into the overworld, and you can keep doing this. It's not a matter anymore of this is a level, and once I'm at the end, I have to close the game and restart it. So that's really the most important thing that I did this week, because that makes it go from a set of levels to a test game. It wasn't that difficult to do, obviously. You literally just load another level. There is some things with going back into the hub world, you can really see a lot of the level loading still happening. I just need to put a loading screen in between there. But I'm going to have to look into loading screens and how they exactly, how to properly make those going forward. Because right now, all I'm doing is I'm putting a black image with the text loading on screen for like 2 seconds. And then once that disappears, I'm just hoping that everything is loaded in. If you have a small or a slower computer, it might not have. So I need to figure out a way for the game to figure out I have finished loading and then fade out that black screen. But have it stay for like a minimum of 2 seconds, because you don't want to have it just pop up for like half a second. That kind of stuff, right? So I need to figure that out. But again, that's very much polishing. That's not necessarily required for something like this test build. And I think that is something that I, for a couple of weeks here, have been really focused on these little things like I need to fix this, I need to fix that. Of course, I do need to fix that. I do need to figure that out. But I also think that working on the game in those small little details, while the big questions and like the big structural problems aren't solved yet or aren't created yet, it's kind of unnecessary, right? It's mostly a presentation thing. I think function over form in this case. And in order to improve the function, I need to let people experience that function. That's quite frankly kind of terrifying, because again, I've been working on this for 3 months and now it's in other people's hands and I haven't heard back from it. So everybody probably fucking hates it. Probably not. Maybe, I don't know. I'm hoping they don't tear me to shreds. Then again, if they do, that's really that's a lot of feedback that I can then go ahead and ignore. So going forward, I have a couple of level design ideas. I have some story ideas that go together with a new ID. And this is something that I've talked about a lot as well, is scope creep. And this game certainly has been creeping in scope. And I really need to be mindful of this. But one thing that I've been thinking about is this game specifically. What is its hook? What is unique? What is special about this game? I would argue that it's a somewhat unique mix between a proper open 3D platformer, like most Mario 3D platformers are, and a hallway 3D platformer very much based on Crash Bandicoot. It's a very interesting mix of those. Is that a good selling point? Maybe. I don't think so. It's not maybe it's an interesting selling point, but it's not a good like marketing talking point, right? Then the other thing is that I think that I have pretty creative world IDs. I've shared a couple of them. If you've watched all my devlogs, I think you can probably piece together the 3 world IDs that I have right now. I'm trying to keep it to 3, but now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it'll be 4 or 5 in total. I don't know yet. But I think those are pretty creative and somewhat unique. Again, that's a plus for the game, definitely. Presentation and creative theming is a very good thing, but it's not a selling point. So I came up with another idea. I want to make a 3D platformer with a basic morality system. And how is it gonna work? I'm going to just explain the idea as I have it right now to you, because the game as it is right now, in my mind, this hasn't been implemented yet, but has 4 collectibles per level. So it's a bit of a collectathon. Again, very much Crash Bandicoot inspired. You have a collectible for finishing the level. This is just required to like finish a world and go into like a final world or a final boss. Boss sequences are going to be an entirely separate topic for another day that I am very scared of to get started on, but we'll get to that when we get to that, I guess. So just for finishing the level, then you have one for finishing level without using checkpoints. This is another somewhat unique gameplay mechanic that I'm introducing, is you can go through a level without using the checkpoints and you get a collectible reward for that. Do you have any use for those collectibles in the end? Maybe for like some kind of true ending in the end, but mostly they're just there to be collected. And that is an idea that I was very much inspired by the way Shovel Knight goes like with its checkpoint system, and I was like, why don't more games make creative use of that checkpoint? And I don't want to say that this is a particularly creative use, but at least I'm doing something with it. So that's the second one, and then we have the 2 interesting ones, because you also get a collectible for every level where you collect all of the coins, which the wisps, but let's be honest, they're just coins, or rings in Sonic, or Wumpa Fruit in Crash Bandicoot, or let's just call them coins for simplicity's sake. And you get a collectible for every level where you kill all the enemies. That's not implemented yet, that's just a design idea. But I'm thinking, with a little bit of story background, is what if in the overworld you have a shop, and the shop is manned by 2 salespeople. One of them is an angel, one of them is a devil, maybe like a little bit more in line with the style of the game that I have, so maybe not literally an angel and a devil, but like a being of light and a being of darkness. Certainly we're playing Kingdom Hearts, apparently. And they sell you upgrades. Right now you have a double jump, you have a dash, which is more of a roll, but who cares? You have the air dash, air roll, which is literally just doing the roll in midair, but we can split that into 2 different abilities. You have the wall jump, and potentially I could also make an unlockable endgame triple jump. And then maybe I need to add in a attack. I don't know what kind of attack that's going to be. If it's going to be a more physical attack like the spin dash in Sonic, and it's probably not going to be like the spin dash in Sonic, by the way, because this game has very little to do with Sonic other than that 3D Sonic sometimes is hallway platform based. Or more like the spin attack in Crash Bandicoot, like a more physical attack, or if it's going to be more ranged based attack. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with that yet, though I'll get back to that in a moment, because as I'm saying this out loud I actually get an idea. The idea is that you can buy these abilities, these platforming abilities, from this shop, but both salespeople man the same shop, so there's only one inventory in the shop, so you can only buy one double jump. But depending on which one you buy, it'll have a different look to it. So if you buy it from the demon dude, it'll look evil and dark, and it'll be based on like a red and black color scheme. And if you buy it from the angel, it'll be a lighter, maybe like light blue to white color scheme. And functionally there won't be much or any difference at all in how it works. It'll mostly be a cosmetic difference, but let's be honest, most like upgrade trees and morality systems in games are very much cosmetic mostly. Like there are games where if you go more like, especially if you're playing more in a party system and an RPG, where the good path gives like more healing spells and that kind of stuff, and the bad path gives more damaging spells, for instance. But a lot of the time, abilities are goddamn similar, they just look very different in morality-based systems. So I don't think that's necessarily a downside. So you'll have the opportunity to maybe like buy the double jump from the angel, and then the air dash from the demon. So if you use your double jump, you'll see good particles. If you use your air dash, you'll see bad particles. You can even buy the normal dash from the demon, the air dash from the angel, and then your normal dash will have evil looking particles, which at this moment it doesn't have any particles, but I will make those. And if you then air dash, because you bought that from the angel, it'll look a lot more good. On top of that, I also want the textures of your character to lean more one way or another depending on what you buy. So you have a neutral, probably the color scheme I have right now, very like purple, turquoise and blue based as a color scheme as its base, but the more you lean evil, it'll probably start looking more black and red. If you look more towards the light side, you will start looking a lot more white and light blue. It is the color schemes that I'm thinking of right now. If you buy one from the demon, one from the angel, you'll end up neutral again. If you buy two from the demon, you'll go a lot farther to the bad side, so you'll have a more edgy look to you. On top of that, I also have another little visual impact that I'm thinking about, but I have to figure out exactly how to technically do that, but it shouldn't be that difficult. I just need to figure out how to do it, as is the case with most things. And that is a little set of demon horns for the evil look that grow larger depending on how evil you are. There's going to be a max to that, obviously, because there's a maximum amount of things that you can buy. On the other side, you're going to have a halo above your head if you are leaning more towards angel. You might be wondering, okay, so how does morality come into this? And it kind of does, it kind of doesn't. I explained the 4 different kinds of collectibles. The first 2, completing the level and completing the level without checkpoints, aren't going to be all that relevant to this. The second and the third and the fourth, are going to be the key to this, because just like develop a little bit of story there. The angel is going to be very happy with you killing all the monsters. So if you give the angel the collectibles you get for killing the monsters in a level, that's going to be the currency which you use to buy the buy the upgrades rather from the angel. The demon darkness dude wants to have the magical power of the wisps that you're collecting. So if you get all the wisps in a level, you get that collectible, and he would very much like to have those from you because it's magically powerful and he can do evil shit with it. So that's the way that shop is going to work, and also be impacted by your gameplay decision, because maybe in some levels it's easier to do one than the other. Maybe for your gameplay style it's easier to do one or the other. One thing that I make this very clear in a lot of my video essays, one thing that I think is important is that yes, sometimes you need to give the player a decision, but I also think that a lot of changes should be informed by gameplay inputs and not direct like menu input, if that makes any sense, right? So my gameplay input here is my skill in killing all the enemies and or killing all the or collecting all the coins. If I am better at one than the other, I'll lean more towards that side in the morality system. If I'm good at both, that means that I'll have the opportunity to buy upgrades from both at a more rapid pace. But, and this is where I want to get in, I need to have a pure good and a pure evil ending to encourage people to not spend both those collectibles on the shop. So what I'm thinking is right now I think I have about 15 levels lined up as ideas. So once you've bought out the entire shop, there's going to be one new item added that is worth 15 of either currency. Meaning that you can only buy that one if you've never spent one currency or the other at all, but still have collected everything. So you need to buy everything with the darkness dude, and then you can buy the good ending from or the bad ending rather actually, from the angel, and the other way around. And that bad ending or good ending is probably just going to be the test level that I have right now. I have this one level that's just a string of all the mechanics that exist in the game where I just throw them in to see them function in a map, and I just made it a playable level. I think that's going to be the 100% completion bonus, And that one you'll only be able to unlock if you go 100% good, 100% bad, one or the other. I'll probably have some kind of visual difference there as well. So that's the idea right now, is adding this kind of morality system into the game to make it a little bit more than just a subpar Crash Bandicoot ripoff. Because at the moment, let's be honest, it is. Going back to one thing I said a little earlier, and then we're going to end up this video, because I see that I've been talking for quite a while already, and there's not going to be a lot of B-roll here, because I don't have footage. A lot of this is just conceptual. I said most of the differences are going to be purely visual, and that I hadn't had any ideas for attacking yet. So what I'm thinking right now is that the one thing that's going to be functionally different is the attack that you can buy. That being, and I don't know what the actual attack is going to be, but I'm thinking if you buy the attack from one side, it'll be a physical attack like the spin in Crash Bandicoot. It's probably just going to be like holy armor or something like that from the angel. And if you buy the attack from the other, it's going to be a magical range-based attack, which is probably going to be more powerful. I'm just going to be honest with you. And that'll just be like a fireball or something that you fire off. So that is something that is probably going to be functionally different, just because I want there to be some amount of functional difference, especially since I want to make it a little tricky for people to stick to one side or the other. So if you've gotten all the angel ones and then you're like, oh, but I really want that devil attack, you're just going to have to complete this playthrough and play again with a devil playthrough or a mixed playthrough and just not get the 100% ending or whatever, right? There's a lot of things to decide and to think about here. Not necessarily on a technical level, but on like the design level, a couple of things more difficult, because that means that I'm going to have to make every single level beatable without any of the upgrades. Or at least make sure that you can't get to certain levels without having those specific upgrades. But then I also need to make sure there's a couple of levels that are easy enough to get some of the upgrades that are required. Now, one last thing before we end off is I'm not going to be working on the level that I've been working on for the last couple of months for a while. As I go along with developing the game, I'm now going to focus my efforts on creating a different world, a world where I have more exact ideas what I want to do, and that's also going to be the world where I think at least one of the levels is going to be so significantly easy that it's probably even going to require, as a matter of fact, that you pick up both of those collectibles. So at least with that world, and there's also going to be a tutorial for collecting all the wisps and a tutorial level for murdering all the enemies. So you'll at least have a very easy access to 2 collectibles from each type. So you probably can at least buy the double jump, is what I'm thinking. If you decide to buy something that's not the double jump, that's on you. But the double jump is probably going to be the cheapest one, both to encourage people to actually go ahead and buy it, but also because it's going to be needed. It's not really needed to finish any of the levels that I have so far, I don't think. It will, however, be very much needed for just making it feel good. I've in the past complained about 3D platformers that rely too much on their double jump, but I've since come to accept that 3D platformers have that double jump mostly for course correction reasons. Because landing an exact precision jump without being able to mid-air correct in 3 dimensions is just very, very difficult and not a lot of fun generally. So I need to make sure that people actually get that double jump, but I also need them to buy it, which is, again, it's mostly a design issue, not as much as a technical issue. Technically speaking, nothing I have said here is going to be particularly difficult to make, I don't think. I need to figure out how to make a shop, but also that shouldn't be too difficult technically speaking. It's mostly the UI, which I still need to figure out how to properly make. It's mostly design where I'm very worried about how I'm going to fix certain problems and how I'm going to react to problems that I don't even think about right now. And I'm just very stressed, okay? Anyway, that's been it for this week before my camera stops recording. And go down below in the description. There is a link there to go play this first test build. And next week we'll be back with... I don't know what we'll be back with, honestly. I don't really have any exact plans as to what I'm going to work on over the next week. I'm probably just going to start work on the next blocking out for the next level, is what I'm thinking. But hey, what do you know? We'll see. Next week, not now. This is the end of the video. Don't know why you're still watching.